All right. So welcome. My name is Dr. Chandra Carr. I am the Director of Practicum Education here at Wayne State School of Social Work. So glad to have you with us. We are here for another great day of boot camp, and we are excited to teach you and show you today about ethics. And we have a great presenter here for you today. We have Miss Angela Oliveira, who is going to be presenting today. And let me give you a little information about Angela. So Angela Oliveira is an alumni of Wayne State and has been employed here at Wayne State since 1985. Her first years were in the Office of Student Affairs, and she was later recruited back to Wayne State in 2014. And she has spent 29 years of working in child welfare, first as a case manager, therapist, and then as a supervisor for program manager. She has been a deputy director and eventually as the president and CEO of a private child care or child welfare organization. And she did that for 15 years. So today, Angela works in the Office of Practicum Education with us as a placement assistant, a faculty liaison, and she teaches part-time here in the School of Social Work. So we are very pleased to have Angela with us today. She has a lot of tools and knowledge to share with us, very wise. And so we will allow Angela to get started this morning. So Angela, you can take it away. You have access to the slides as well. Feel free. Give Miss Angela a minute, guys.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
And now we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes. Thank you.
I am so sorry.
Okay,
Um,
we can hear you now.
Alrighty. Okay, so I obviously have had an introduction. Sorry. Okay, so this presentation is about ethics, and I cannot stress the importance of, can you see me?
We cannot see you.
Okay, very good. Cannot stress the importance of ethics because I cannot tell you in all the positions that I have been in how frequently ethics have been violated both in the organization and in the with the clients. And so it's important that you know and understand what ethics is and why you should practice it in your internship practicum sites as well as in the profession. And so we're going to go through this PowerPoint slide presentation. And if you have questions, you can either hold them to the end. I'm not sure how many people are in this session, but if it's not too many people, perhaps we can answer questions as they come along. Okay, so if Sandra, can you go to the first slide? Um, this is our agenda for what we'll be discussing. What is ethics? The importance of following agency protocols and procedures, understanding confidentiality, understanding mandated reporting, why documentation is necessary, falsifying documentation, what that could mean, overall communication, professionalism, and observing boundaries. Okay, so to the next slide, ethics should be something that you understand as the difference between right and wrong. It can be defined as rules of conduct in a work setting. So that means whatever is proper and appropriate is something that you should be doing. Um, uh, there are certain things in the workplace at the practicum site that you should not be doing. There are certain things that you should be doing. And so ethics follows a set of principles that are based on the social work code of ethics. And you should know what those social work code of ethics are in any setting that you are in. It's also important that you understand what your agency protocols are. One of the first things that you do when you get to the practicum is to understand the agency's protocols from top to bottom. And so you might spend some time reviewing agency manuals, policies, and procedures. Don't poo-poo that or think that that's not important. It is very important because when you do something wrong, the organization will let you know about it. And if it is of a severe nature, they may even terminate you. So it's important for you to understand all of the policies and procedures that you'll be responsible for during your time there. Next slide, please. One of the first things that is important for you to understand in your internship is to be able to demonstrate the dignity and worth of a person and respect and treat each person in a respectful manner. Now, sometimes you can go into an environment where you observe the staff who are negative, have negative jokes, and things of that nature. But that really is sometimes a coping mechanism that social workers will use on the job. But your responsibility is to show respect and to demonstrate that you value the person or that the person's concerns are valued and that matters. So that means that you should be aware of what your feelings and attitudes are. You should be aware of your body language, your facial expression, because those things will show to the client if you're irritated, if you're annoyed, if you don't want to be there. Those things will show up. And so it's important that you recognize when you have a particular attitude. Um, uh, uh, if you're not feeling well, perhaps you may want to excuse yourself for the moment. But learn the code of ethics and learn it is very important to show dignity and respect to the people that you're working with. If for some reason you are not liking the population of people that you are working with, you need to make a decision as to what should be done. You most likely should have a conversation with your practicum supervisor or perhaps your faculty liaison, because if you're not feeling good about where you are and about the population that you're working with, you are most likely not going to give your best efforts toward that group of people. And you should know now. I mean, for example, one of the things that you should know is, do you like working with people who have been involved with substance abuse? Would you be having any objections to working with people that had a criminal past? You have to have some understanding of where you want to be and the values that you're going to take into that, because sometimes your values will color your interactions with this population of people. Next slide, please. Again, following the agency's procedures. So even before you learn what it is that you are to do, it's equally important that you learn what not to assume on the job. For example, what is the required start time? Now, this is a big problem. Why is it a problem? If your start time is 7 a.m., you do not walk in the door at 7 a.m. because that means you are late. Now, you might not agree with that, but the best thing to do is try to get there 10 to 15 minutes early, get yourself settled, get your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you want to have. But it is important that at 7 a.m. or whatever your start time might be, that you be prepared to do the work. If you're rushing in there at 7, then it takes you 5 to 10 minutes to get settled and situated and figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Then you're late, and it is impinging on the organization's time and what it is that they're supposed to be doing. Another question that you have to be able to ask actually ahead of time is, does the organization have a dress code? These days, dress codes, in my opinion, are much more casual than they used to be. In social work organizations, sometimes they tell you don't dress too good because you'll be going into homes that have roaches and it's not clean. But one of the ways, to me, that you show respect to the people is that you dress appropriately and as a professional. So you should ask that question. So don't show up in shorts and a t-shirt if the organization has a different particular dress code. You need to know what that is. What is the organization's policy on cell phone use? These days, most people's cell phone is like an appendage. It is attached to their bodies. But you need to know, what is the organization's policy? Is it okay to have your cell phone on the desk? Is it not okay to have your cell phone on the desk? Is it okay to use your cell phone during those working hours or not? And how does your supervisor wish for you to communicate with them? These days, many supervisors don't mind you texting them. When I was a supervisor, I did not like texting. I wanted somebody to call me directly. But you need to find out how your supervisor wishes for you to communicate with them. Sometimes you can text them. Sometimes they might give you their cell number so that you can call them directly, but you need to know what that is. And then there are more examples of following the organization's protocol. For example, there are times when you wouldn't be eating at your desk. Okay, there are times you can go to the lunchroom. Other examples that you can think of that the agency might have. But it's important for you to know what that is, because your job is to show professionalism, which means that you behave as they behave. Next slide, please. If you have not already been accepted, but most of course you probably have, please remember that most potential employees and organizations that we use will in fact do some background checks on you. They will go to your Facebook page. They will go to your Instagram page and find out what kind of activities you engage in. Why do they do that? They want to know more than what the interview will sometimes tell them. And you will be very careful as to what's on your page. Sometimes things will show up from 10 years ago, but you don't want them to see you engaging in behaviors that wouldn't complement the organization, because you will become a representative of the organization. We have had students denied from placement because of stuff that was found on their Facebook page, because it's telling the organization something about you and your lifestyle. So I hope that there are no questions about that. I hope there have been no concerns about things like that. But those kind of things do happen, because sometimes you present well during the interview, but your outside life is completely different. And that has an impact on your position. Next slide, please. Demonstrating proper ethics also means that you, again, must be present on the days and times that you agree to with the organization. Most of you are taking classes, some of you are doing it online, but you need to be clear about what those days are. One of the things that I suggest that students do, if you have vacations or things planned, please let the organization know ahead of time. For example, today is Wednesday, so don't spring it on them. Oh, well, by the way, Friday, I'll be flying to Miami. Don't spring stuff on them like that, because they will not appreciate it. If you have plans, discuss it with them ahead of time so that they know how to prepare and provide coverage for their organization. It's very important, especially when you know in advance that you have a vacation coming up in November, or you're going to be flying to Tahiti for the week. You need to let the organization know. Notify your supervisor in advance, again, when you plan to be late or absent. That's one of the givens. It's important to be honest and to tell the truth. If you cannot be honest, most of the time, those are fireable offenses, okay? It is not proper for you to do homework on the internship site. So don't assume because you, quote, don't have anything to do that you can do your homework. That's the fastest way that I know that a supervisor will already start to evaluate you in a negative way. So you'll want to be sure to not do homework because you, quote, don't have anything to do. If you don't have anything to do, don't have any assignments, then ask for an assignment from your supervisor, because that will help them to see that you have good initiative, that you have good motivation, and that you are willing and interested in learning to do more than what you have been assigned to do. So unless somebody says, well, we don't really have anything for you to do, if you have some homework, feel free. Otherwise, don't do it. Don't even bring it to the site. Don't plan to do your papers and homework at the internship site. Your responsibility is to learn the full operation of the organization and to do your best to demonstrate that excellence. One of the other things, please remember, if you are at a large organization with multiple supervisors, don't take it upon yourself to seek out supervision from somebody you are not assigned to. That's going to cause problems within the organization. You might like that person, you might be interested, but ask if you can have a conversation with that other person. Don't just assume you can go. A few years ago, I had 4 students placed at the DHS office in Western Wayne, and 3 of the students decided that they wanted to have some input from a different supervisor. Well, that supervisor was newer on the job than their assigned supervisor, and it caused a whole bunch of problems. I had to go out there, have a conversation, and give them some what to do's and what not to do's. Even if you like the person, they seem interesting, ask the question if the current supervisor objects to you having a conversation with a different supervisor, because supervisors do have different styles of providing supervision. So it's important that you be sure to ask questions. Don't just assume it's okay for you to go to another supervisor when you haven't been assigned to that person. Next slide, please. It's also important that in your position, you should maintain proper boundaries. What do I mean by that? In your position, uh, uh, if I could use a colloquialism, you're the low man on the totem pole, okay? There's certain privileges that you don't have. There's certain things that you shouldn't say. Please understand that boundaries also mean that you should not look at somebody as a romantic interest. You should not consider engaging with that person outside of the organization, because that leads to problems and liabilities for the organization. I had a student tell me one time, I don't think it's the agency's business who I date and who I go out with. Oh, but it is. Okay? It is. And so that's something that you should stay away from. Remember, you're a student. They are employees. There are boundaries that should not be crossed. You should not have clients in your home or apartment. You should not be going out with clients. And learn to feel comfortable saying no, thank you if people invite you to do so. We had a student, maybe 2, 3 years ago, that did not graduate on time because she engaged so much with the client that she crossed all kind of boundary lines. It became improper, and we made her do her practicum experience all over again. She took the client to her home. She disagreed with the organization's recommendations for her. She had people from her church picking him up and going to her home. And then the student disagreed in court against the agency. Now, that's just something that should not happen. That was at a child welfare organization. So if people invite you to dinner or invite you, you need to feel comfortable saying thank you, no thank you. Again, don't have family and friends picking up clients and transporting them. That's a liability issue. And again, if you disagree with the direction of a case, do not share that information with the client. Instead, have the discussion with the practicum instructor or your faculty liaison. Because when you disagree, it means that, there's something that, either you don't see or you don't know about. In the case with the student that I had, she didn't understand why the agency was saying that the parents' rights should have been terminated, but there was information that she did not have. So when you cross those kind of lines, you get people in trouble, and sometimes you raise false hopes for them. Okay, next slide, please. Avoid cliques and gossip sessions. That is important because having cliques, I'm sure you guys know what a clique is, but if having cliques and gossip sessions become one of those things that turn off supervisors, because when they see you engaging in those kind of things, it gives them another aspect of who you are and how you will behave as an employee. Okay? If you have concerns while you're at the organization, you should share those concerns with your faculty liaison. That's why the faculty liaisons are there. Sometimes I remember we had students that were placed at an agency not too far from the school. And there were students from Wayne State, there were students from Michigan State, there were students from Oakland University. And there was the one student from Oakland University that just started complaining about the supervisor and got everybody involved with it. Excuse me, well, all of those students were then terminated because of the ruckus that it caused. So please don't allow yourself to get drawn into gossip sessions because you like sitting next to the person where you are, okay? And even if the person is right, those are not things that you should be discussing with them. Discuss them with your faculty liaison or with your supervisor. But my thought is the best thing to do is to avoid it altogether. Because the other thing that that does, it creates a negative environment. And most of the time, the environments where we serve are already stressful. And so if people are offering negative information and negative comments, that's only going to add to a stressful situation. So try to avoid it at all costs, okay? If you spend too much time on personal calls, uh, using your phone for social media and the company equipment for other stuff, most likely you will be fired. I can't tell you how many times people don't think that they're going to find out that somebody's watching the porn site in another room. They find out about it because that's what IT people are for. They discover who's doing what at what computer. They figure out the times that that occurs, and then you end up getting in trouble. So you should avoid at all costs those kinds of behaviors. And again, I used to work at a couple, but in particular, this foster care agency that I worked at, there were workers engaging in romantic relationships with foster parents. One foster father divorced his wife to marry the case manager. Another uh, foster parent got into a sexual relationship with the case manager, and everybody was terminated. And the kids had to be moved to a different placement. So, this kind of behavior is just totally unacceptable and against all ethics for people who are in the field of social worker. It happens often. People are dating at the site. Somebody should leave. If you're dating somebody and you're both at the same organization, one of you should leave. You're not going to like that, but one of you should leave because it creates all kind of conflict of interest. I know of another organization, the people who were dating each other that were both staff people were caught having sex in the supervisor's office. Those are kind of things that should not happen. And trust me, our field is small. Everybody knows everybody else. So you cannot leave one organization under those kind of circumstances and think that the organization where you're going is not going to find out about it. I remember the first time I left an organization to go to another one, the executive said to me, "Oh, I heard about you." And I was like, "What? What did you hear about me?" It was a good comment, but I did not realize at the time that all these executives, they know each other. Many of the supervisors, they know each other. And so they will have comments about you. We used to make deals. It's like, please don't steal my staff. Now, that didn't always happen, but those kind of things will go on. And then the one case that I really feel bad about is I was working at a foster care organization, and the case manager extorted the birth mother for sex and money. Told the case manager that I, if you can see what I look like, was an old white woman who didn't care. And when the birth mother saw who I was, she was surprised. She said, "Well, he must have lied about some other things too, if he lied about you." And I said, "Most certainly." I didn't ask any questions. That young man got fired and lost his job because it was discovered that he was extorting this birth mother for sex and money. The mother produced the check that she wrote to him for this extortion. And I'm not sure that he got another job after that. Okay, I'm not sure what to do, Chandra. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, you just can't see me.
Correct.
Okay, sorry. I'm not sure what that is about. Okay, can I keep going?
Please keep going.
Yep. One moment, please. There you go. You're all set. It's not doing it.
It might be broken,
Mm.
but like you're right here. So I can see you right here.
But they can't see me. Go to the bottom video screen. Oh, this one?
Mm-hmm. But you're already, why do you have so many windows open?
Oh, I was working on something.
Oh, okay. Because where did it go? Sorry, let's go here. Okay. Yeah. Are you on Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you gotta get off of here first. This is Teams. So I'm not sure why it's not clicking, but you gotta get out of Teams because you're over here. There you go.
Sorry, thank you.
There you go.
I
We can see you.
apologize. Sorry.
That's okay. We can see you now.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is because I don't speak computer, okay? I had too many windows open. Okay, can we go to the next slide, I think?
Sure. There we go.
Okay, confidentiality. Now, it's important for you to remember that things are confidential, and we're not just talking about certain aspects of the cases that you might be working with. Confidentiality is a practice that is observed not just in our profession, but also in the medical profession, and it's the reason that we have HIPAA today. I went to urgent care a couple of weeks ago because I had some kind of food poisoning or whatever. And the ladies at the front desk were discussing a client. And I'm thinking, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So it's important for us to remember we must protect clients' personal, confidential information. You must be aware of how loud you speak, how far your voice will carry. You should not be discussing client information in a public space, in the hallway, in the bathroom, in the elevator. That's a place where you don't know who's with you or who's listening, or even if that person is somebody who you're talking about. You should not be discussing the cases that you're working with folks who are not affiliated with the case. Okay? If they're not affiliated with the case, you shouldn't be working with them or talking with them about that case. And you should be careful not to leave client information laying around. If you went to the Xerox machine and you forgot something, go back as quickly as possible and retrieve that information, because someone inevitably will come and see and say, oh, what is this? Let me see. But now somebody's personal information is exposed. Next slide, please. So what are kind of things that should remain confidential? The person's name. And these days, there are many people with the same name, so you never know who you're talking about. Clients' telephone numbers, emails, URLs, social security numbers, medical information, and certainly other things like banking information, account numbers, all that kind of stuff has to be protected. And there are reasons, and the reasons that they're seeking services must also be protected. People should know why a client is seeking services or that they're seeking services. Next slide, please. Have you ever heard of duty to warn? Okay, a duty to warn. Wait just one moment, Sandra. Um, Duty to warn means that there is some information that you have that the client that you're working with intends to harm themselves or someone else. You must report it. Did you hear me? If you learn, this is the time when you break confidentiality. Someone is planning to harm themselves or others. You break confidentiality. You're going to let your supervisor know. You're going to find out first. Well, again, if you're learning the procedures, what's the agency's procedure on a duty to warn? When you learn somebody intends to harm themselves or somebody else, what's the procedure? What is the procedure? Are you supposed to call 911? Are you supposed to let the supervisor know? Are you supposed to let the agency director know? What are you supposed to do? But sometimes in whatever setting you might be in, you may learn. And these days, it could be in a school. It could be at elementary or middle school where you hear that. And those kind of things must be reported because they shouldn't be taken lightly. You know, like, oh, they were just playing, or I didn't really mean. Those things have to be taken seriously. So please learn from your organization what it means for a duty to warn and the kind of clients that you're going to be working with. Okay? The sound went out. Oh my goodness. Can you
We can
guys hear
still
me?
hear you. Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, good. So it's very important for you to know what the organization's practice is. If you haven't seen it in writing, ask the question. Some of you who are working in mental health agencies, you will might run across folks who talk about potentially harming themselves or harming somebody else. You have to let somebody know. That's not information you sit on. And it's not about, quote, getting people in trouble. It's not about snitching. It's about doing what is proper. And it's keeping the organization and you out of a libelous situation. Okay? So please take that seriously. If somebody says to you, and again, these days, middle school students are talk about killing themselves. You can't dismiss that as they didn't mean it or they were just talking because they were upset. You cannot dismiss it. Okay? Next slide, please. When you interact with clients, again, you're treating them with dignity and respect, not just from a behavioral standpoint, meaning you're polite, you smile, you have a kind voice. Your attitude has to demonstrate that you are treating them with respect. Your manner has to demonstrate that you're treating them with respect. Remember, most of the clients that you will see are seeking services on a voluntary basis. They are not required. Now, some are going to be required to seek counseling or therapy or whatever it is, but most of them are seeking services voluntarily. And so check your attitude. What are you saying to yourself? What does your face or facial expression say to the clients who you are meeting with? Does it say that you feel annoyed? You feel like you don't want to be bothered? That's not treating someone with dignity and respect. Okay? So remember to watch your facial expression. I've been told that my face is very expressive, which means that people can tell when I'm surprised, when I'm upset, when I'm questioning. And so you have to be very aware of that so that doesn't show to the clients. You have to be able to make clients, you want them to feel like they can have some informed decisions. You don't make the decisions for them. Okay? People have to be aware that the decisions that they make are decisions that they make for themselves. You provide as much information as you can, as many options as you can, but they must be able to make the decision for themselves. Again, you're in tune with your own feelings and be aware of what your facial and body language says, because that will tell them sometimes what your words won't say. Next slide, please. Okay, we did that duty to warn. Again, people have, I hope this picture wasn't harsh, but it suggests that we know that people have access to firearms. I had death in the family this past week, and we went to clean out my cousin's house, and we found a weapon in her home. And it was very surprising because my cousin did not appear to be someone who would have a weapon. Did she have it for protection? Whatever. We don't know, right? But if someone has a weapon, almost anything is possible. And we don't know if they've been trained. We don't know if they know how to properly use a firearm, how it should be stored, all those kind of things. But you must be aware that when there's information that you learn that somebody wants to harm themselves or somebody else in particular, somebody lost their job and they're mad at the supervisor who fired them, who laid them off, you have a duty to warn. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you and have a wonderful. Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about, I think my slides got messed up, is we did confidentiality, documentation. If it's not written, it didn't happen. Documentation for a social worker is very important. It verifies the activity. Now, if you're like me, you're saying, oh, I just want to help the people and, like have a good thing. No, 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 no. It didn't happen if you don't write it down. So you must be able to follow the protocols of the organization and have documentation on almost all the sessions that you have and conversations that you have. We have that here. We have to have documentation of meetings, of conversations, of everything, because otherwise it did not happen. Documentation can be falsified and very often is falsified, not just by persons on the job. I have been in situations where an administrator falsified documentation. And that's the kind of thing where I said, whoa, 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 hold up. Because that's just something that should not happen. If that's something that you are a part of, you shouldn't be. This particular incident that I'm talking about, the young lady was demoted in her position, and I was new in my position to review the complaint that was raised. Well, the person who was demoted actually had a stronger case. So what did my then supervisor want to do? She wanted to create something for the file. Well, that meant that she's not telling the truth. It was a lie. And so I told him I will not participate in you creating something for the file. Now, did that put me in good standings with my then boss? No, but I would rather be right than be wrong and potentially hurt somebody else. And that young lady was able to get her position back because I didn't go along with creating something for the file that did not exist. So please be aware. Falsifying documentation can be something like making up. Yes, Jasmine.
Hi, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So were you required to to report the supervisor who tried to?
Yeah. Actually, my then supervisor was the executive director of the organization. So yes, I had to report that.
Thank you.
Again, and it doesn't leave you in good standing, but my then supervisor was had already given her announcement that she was going to retire, but that's not the point. The point is, I had to be able to say, because, there was the HR person was also involved in this, right? And so my thought was, we cannot do this. We cannot do this. We cannot create things that didn't exist. So falsifying documentation exists at all levels. At the worker level, you put something on the timesheet that didn't occur. You indicate you made a phone call that you didn't make. That's falsifying documentation. That should not happen. Your job should be to tell the truth, even if you are wrong. People will accept an apology, right? But when you lie, it's going to eventually catch up with you. So don't make it a habit to falsify documentation. In many fields, cutting and pasting is quite common. You need to get with the organization on that. Create your own documentation. Don't just take somebody else's work and their efforts to whatever it is you're doing. You need to be able to provide accurate information as to what's happening, when it happened, how it happened. Dr. Carr and I were just last night going through some issues where we had to have explicit documentation, because without that documentation, it just would have been a chaotic situation. So this was just last night. I think we were going back and forth to about after 7 o'clock. And it started up again this morning. But because of the level of documentation, we have a solid case. And again, if it's not in writing in terms of your documentation for what you're doing, it didn't happen. Nobody can verify what, when, or how, because you didn't take the time to write it down. So please never poo-poo the importance of documentation and writing some things down. Take the time to document when you're supposed to. Sometimes waiting to the end of the week to catch up with your notes is too late to recall everything. So take the moment that you would need to be able to write down all the things that have occurred and how. That's very important. Falsifying documentation is a fireable offense, because if you falsified one document, you'll falsify 2, you'll falsify 10. The organization doesn't want you around. It's too much of a liability. Communication, I think that we talked about that. Professionalism. There are times when, probably not gonna like this, you must be quiet. You might hear some hurtful things, but the best response is sometimes no response. It is not always helpful for you to respond when people have been upset. You need to know when it's okay to respond and how. One of the things that I say to students that I supervise is that you have to know the animals in your zoo. What do I mean when I say know the animals in your zoo? Who are you dealing with? Are you dealing with a bunny rabbit, or are you dealing with a grizzly bear? And you have to know what you want to say. Is that helpful or is it not helpful? And be able to communicate in a way that you can still be the professional in the room. It's not going to always be easy dealing with coworkers and topics and clients and things of that nature. It's not always going to be easy, but you must maintain a very high level of professionalism, even if you can't get your point across. Sometimes it wouldn't make a difference anyway. So you have to decide if what you want to say is helpful and is it going to make a difference? If not, learn to keep quiet. Questions? Megan.
Good morning. My question is, so I have a criminal record and my goal is to have it expunged in the next year. Going forward, I've been told that I will have to be like pegged in the mental health or substance use field because of my criminal record. But I would love to be able to broaden my population in which I serve one day. Um, if I choose to apply at a different job, will I have to say that I still have a criminal record even if it is expunged?
Okay, I missed part of what you said, but hold on, because that's kind of personal, right? If you once you get the record expunged, it's like erasing the chalkboard, erasing what has happened. Okay. Now, if they ask for all legal interactions, you must disclose that. And then, of course, you can say such and such happened 12 years ago, happened 8 years ago, but I got it expunged, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I kind of made it short.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was told like I'm going to be shadowing with social workers that go on visits and things like that.
Yes.
Um, do are we as social workers privy to things like they have guns in the house or firearms or you do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah,
Like,
I think so. I,
are those questions that are like asked
well,
when you
again, what
go
does
on
the organization,
visits?
what is the, you need to know what the organization's policy is. Why are you going to
Okay,
visit? Um, so if you're going to make sure that the toilet works, you wouldn't be asking about weapons. You know what I mean?
right,
If you're going to make sure that the parents are going to parenting classes, then you wouldn't ask about weapons in the home. We had a case one time where the entire basement was lined with assault weapons.
like,
Well, there were children in the home. I asked the father why, like, I mean, the walls were lined with these weapons, right? He was apparently some kind of collector.
hmm
So that, because they're showing me around, I'm asking questions. Okay, now I got to report you to the ATF because there were children in the home and all of those weapons weren't secured legally.
okay,
So you need to know what, like, especially my background is in child welfare. And
sure,
so that had to be reported.
right,
So there are times, but you need to know what the organization, one time we went to the lady's house and she needed some diapers. We took her some diapers that there was a knife on the table. Well, only thing I said was you might want to put that away.
right,
Okay. So we don't have um access to every aspect of a person's life.
okay,
Yeah. Unless you perhaps are working for protective services and in your shadowing, that's what you do, then yeah,
sure,
those are questions. That's what you do.
okay.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. And then be sure the person that you're shadowing, ask
hmm
them those questions also.
I'm going to. I was just
Okay.
curious as to what your take was on that.
Hmm. Renee,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good.
Um, I have a question because I've been working sort of in a very fringy area where social work and law converge for the Macomb County Public Defender's Office.
Okay.
And it was made explicitly clear on several occasions that um, mandated reporting doesn't always work the same in different places.
That's correct.
Um, I didn't know, I guess I didn't understand that going into this. But that being said, just to be clear, I have not encountered anything that I would think that I need to report as of right now. I've only done 10 weeks with them.
Okay, well,
Um,
let me just say, I think I skipped that on the agenda. I did have it on there. But mandated reporting is required for certain folks in the profession, not everybody. And again, this is something that falls under what the organization's procedures for that is. Okay? Sometimes the procedure is you tell the supervisor tells the director, and they make the decision. Okay? But teachers, counselors, nurses, doctors, law enforcement professionals, but whatever municipality that you're in, the procedures are usually different.
I have a
But
question regarding that.
just one second, just one second. So that also means that when we say mandated, you are required. But again, don't step out of the lines of your role. Find out what the agency's procedure says should happen. If you see or suspect a case of abuse of children and the elderly, somebody is required from that organization to report it. Okay? But again, different agencies handle it differently. Some places say if you saw it, then you report it. Some of them say, no, come to the supervisor and I'll make the decision as to if it gets reported. So you got to be sure what the procedure is. Renee, we
thank that.
good with that?
Yes, thank you so much.
Welcome. Who said I have a question I didn't hear?
That was me. So I have an EMT license, and that's part of the mandated reporter.
Yep.
With that, I know I'm not an EMT at the agency, but with that license, it's not necessarily you're only an EMT when you're working in an ambulance. Like if I'm driving down the road and I see an accident, I'm required to stop. So how
Right.
does that work with being a mandated reporter?
I think it falls under the umbrella of law enforcement.
So would I report it or would I follow my agencies?
What? Okay, but if you, especially like in your role, right? What does your agency procedure say?
Okay. We haven't gone through that yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's if I'm thinking that as an EMT, like if you must stop when you see an accident, whether you're on the job or not, that same thing would apply. It might suggest you call the supervisor, report it, or you can call CPS directly, because even if you call CPS directly, that's an anonymous report. But as a law enforcement person, I think EMT falls under law enforcement, and so that's the reason you should report.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if like I said, that I know that's a different scenario.
Yes. Renee, do you still have a question? Your hand is up. Guess that's a no.
I do not, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other questions? Mandated reported can be sticky. So again, those one of the things that you and if you're at a school, there are certain procedures. If you're at a foster care organization, there are certain procedures. Um, sometimes I think there's been some revision with the law, but there can be I think everybody is well, not everybody, I guess, is exempt. So if something happens at a school, the teacher reports it to the principal decides whether or not it goes any further than that. Any other questions? Looks like that's a no.
But we thank you so much.
Well, and I just one other thing. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of observing boundaries. That dating stuff, that's a no-no. That's a no-no. Okay? That social media stuff, that's a no-no. And as interns, it should be your agenda actually, not just to learn the job, but it's also your agenda to be the best at what it is you're learning. So learn the policies very well. Learn the procedures very well. And so it's, again, something that you should pay attention to, because whether you agree with it or not, it keeps you and the organization safe from a libelous situation. Yes, Jasmine.
As social workers, are we allowed to record interviews or discussions if we
Not without the person's permission.
Okay.
Not without the person's permission.
Okay, thank you.
And let me clarify that even further, written permission, because they can say, you can say, oh, Mr. Jones, is that okay if I record you? And he can verbally say, oh yeah, Miss Jasmine, that's fine. And you record, and then a week later, I didn't tell her that.
Right. And again, if
So,
it's not written, it didn't
not
happen.
written, it didn't happen. So usually organizations have some type of form or document to say that you can do that or not. So make sure you have that in writing, that it was okay to do that.
Thank you. I was just asking that question for documentation purposes, because I know we document a lot. So to make it easier on us, is that a common practice or no?
Typically, it's done, it shouldn't, first of all, that's a no. But typically, it's done if somebody thinks that they're doing wrong and somebody's trying to set them up, and they do it to try to prove that they really didn't do anything wrong. Again, I had a student one year who got into it with the supervisor on the job. And so we had to have a meeting, and the student is now recording me in the meeting. And there's nothing that I can say to you or will say to you that I wouldn't repeat to somebody else. Furthermore, you never had any permission to do that. So don't. So everything on that recording is going to count for absolutely nothing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we ended a little early. Yes, Trisha.
Oh, I just wanted to add, I did learn last year that also you have to make sure when you're getting that consent that the person is in the right frame of mind and is able to consent for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okie dokie. Dr. Carr, I think we're all done.
Okay, well, we thank you, Ms. Oliveira, for your time and for your expertise in helping us with ethics and knowing what to do at our practicum. We appreciate you today, and we thank everyone for participating in the boot camp. Again, you can put down an hour for today, and make sure you log this into your IPT for your hours. This session will also be uploaded into Canvas. Give it about a week and you will see it in there. And you can have it as a review, but for those individuals who were not able to make it today, they will be able to see it and participate in the quiz as well. So thank you all and have a good rest of your day. Look forward to seeing you this afternoon if you can make it. And have a good one. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Do we record this as 1 hour? Or
yes,
do we
1 hour.
Okay,
1 hour.
Okay. And every boot camp is recorded separately, or can we gather it?
You can gather them all if you want to at the end, but 1 hour.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Bye.